All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on day one of the Tableau Summer Camp webinar series. My name is Bergen Schmetzer, and I am going to be kind of your moderator and host throughout this week. I am on the academic programs at Tableau and manage all of our Tableau for Students programs. So just super excited to have all of you here with us this week. Learn a little bit about Tableau, get connected to the Tableau community, and hope you all walk away with something new. To just give you a brief kind of overview of what we're going to go through this week, is today we're going to have Simon Beaumont walk us through an introduction to data literacy, and then we also have a student story with a student coming in and kind of sharing her Tableau and data analytics journey. Tomorrow, we're going to jump into Tableau Prep and have a demo with Tableau Visionary Carl Alchin. On day 3 on Wednesday, we're going to do an escape room demo. So really kind of show you these fun, unique ways on how to use Tableau. And again, sprinkling in another student story with a Tableau student ambassador. Thursday, we're going to really spend the day jumping into some hands-on training. So we have one of our lead solution engineers, and she's actually going to be walking us through a hands-on demo of building a full dashboard within Tableau Desktop. And then finally, we are going to end this amazing week with talking about building your digital personal brand on Tableau Public and getting involved with the community. So I think we have some amazing topics. We have some amazing speakers. I'm really excited to have everyone here today. This is just a quick sneak peek into all of the amazing speakers you will get to hear. Each speaker has an incredible story and just so much knowledge around Tableau. And so please take advantage of meeting these members in the community by reaching out, following them on social media. We'll be sharing all of their social channels so you can get connected to them. So just a great networking opportunity and some great speakers. So before we jump into kind of data literacy, just wanted to go over kind of what to expect this week. So really learning the importance of data literacy and kind of data one-on-one. Getting a deeper understanding of Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop. Really jumping into the tool and getting some hands-on training experience with Tableau trainers. Like I mentioned, building your digital personal brand on Tableau Public, and then getting connected to the Tableau community as a student. Our community loves working with students, and there are amazing opportunities to really get involved. And so for some housekeeping items, all of these sessions will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. And so if you can't stay for the whole session or miss a day or two, feel free to just check out our Tableau YouTube channel, because this is where all of that will live. If you have any questions throughout this, please feel free to just ask in the Q&A chat box, and we will get to them at the end. And then for those who attend all 5 of these sessions this week, we will throw you in for a raffle to get some sweet Tableau merch, because who doesn't love some free stuff? And so with that, I would like to welcome Simon Beaumont joining us today. So he is an established data leader with over 20 years of experience in supporting organizations' ability to see and understand data. Simon leads a vibrant and energized team grounded in collaboration, learning, and just really inspired by the Tableau community. He's a Tableau Visionary, which is really kind of that top tier status of the Tableau community. And he's also a social ambassador and co-leads the hashtag SportsVisSunday. Simon is proud of the part that he plays in the Tableau community, and it was actually the Tableau community that first inspired his Tableau journey over 8 years ago. And so to this day, he still continues to learn something new every day, thanks to the work published and shared by others. And so with that, Simon, I will pass it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bergen. So welcome everyone. As you may have guessed via the the voice. I am not based in America, so I am based just south of London in the UK. And as Bergen said, I lead a large data function in JLL. So if we can just go on to the next slide, please. So yeah, I work Global BI Director at JLL. That means every single day I'm responsible for using Tableau, supporting my analysts to be able to transform data into insights. But what really drives us and drives me as a data professional is not building dashboards. The primary purpose whenever we get to learn and get to connect with data is to help people to see and understand their data. And that's what I want to focus on today, is about how do I support you to put yourself into the mindset of walking in the shoes of your customer so that when you produce data, you're producing it in a way that helps drive insights. And I realise not everyone may have heard of JLL, so we are Jones Lang LaSalle, and we are a corporate real estate company. So we're part of the Fortune 500, and we support people to manage their real estate. So that could be supporting people to lease properties, it could be supporting people with the maintenance of their properties. But over the last 5 years, we have almost become a data company that is specializing in corporate real estate. So data is becoming more and more important in what we do. And outside of work, as Bergen very kindly introduced and said, I'm a Tableau Visionary, Tableau Social Ambassador, and unfortunately not an IronViz champion, but I did enjoy going on the virtual stage about 3 years ago as part of the IronViz competition, and having the joy of building a dashboard within 20 minutes in front of everyone. It was slightly scary, but it still remains one of my proudest moments in the Tableau community. If we can just move on. So this, I just wanted to share with you, this is my Tableau public profile. So even though I am a global director and I've been involved in data for 20 years, I still love getting my hands dirty with data. And it is my kind of personal relief, or release if you like, in terms of I can still go into Tableau and viz what I love. And I choose my Tableau public profile to viz about sports, hence why I lead the community initiative Sports Viz Sunday. And if you wanted to find out more about that, just check out sportsvizsunday.com and you can read about the initiative and get involved. But I would, beyond data literacy and what we're going to talk about today, I would encourage all of you, if you're passionate about data and you want one single way to elevate your brand and be able to promote your love of data and your skills, create a Tableau public profile, because it is your lens to the world in terms of saying, hey, look at my progression. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of my profile, you still see the first viz that I ever did about 5 years ago, which was nothing fancy, nothing amazing, and I'm certainly not proud of it. But the reason I keep it there is because it shows my personal progression in terms of how my skills have evolved, and we all have to start somewhere. So you may fear that when you go onto Tableau Public and see the viz of the days and see all the amazing stuff that's being done, you may get that kind of imposter syndrome of, I can't possibly live up to this. Do not worry. No matter who we are in the community, how advanced we are, what we do, we all started somewhere. And I would honestly say, as an employer, when we look at your Tableau public profile, the first thing I would do is go all the way to the bottom to see your personal progression and see that you've embraced the community kind of ethos of learning and growth. So I just wanted to share my personal journey and my profile to hopefully inspire a lot of you to be able to do that post this week. Moving on from that. So when we talk about data literacy, there are two ways of looking at it, but it really depends on your audience. You can talk about data literacy from the data professional point of view, so that's us as analysts wanting to build content in Tableau, or you could look at it from the data consumer point of view. And what I'm going to do today, because I'm a BI leader and I lead a large function in a large corporate organization, I wanted to give you the lens of data literacy from a consumer point of view, because I think that really gives you a unique insight about how you can maximize what you do. You can still learn all about the differences of means, medians, and modes, and all about data types and stuff. And that's what you need as a data professional. And I'll touch upon that. But actually, I think the real thing that stands you apart as a data professional is if you can understand data from the perspective of your consumer. So what I'm going to focus on for the next 15 minutes is more about the lens of how do you as data professionals or people that are wanting a career in data, how do you go about demonstrating the value you deliver to the people that will be using your analysis? So before we start that though, on the next slide, we are going to look at a few things that if you are looking at data literacy from the lens of someone that's producing Tableau content and you wanted to gain a bit of an insight about what you might want to look at. So this is what Bergen said about the data 101. Do look at the different types of data. Understand the difference between discrete data and continuous data, because by understanding how your data is founded and the building blocks, it allows you to build the insights you need using the right chart types and the right construction. I would say know your calculations. So might seem simple to a number of people, but just knowing the differences between types of averages is really important, because you need to be able to make sure that if you display data, you understand what you're displaying and you understand that it's the right way of displaying it. Be aware of the difference in terms of variation. So know if you're going to quote a number, is that number reliable, or do you need to show some kind of confidence intervals to say how much someone can rely on the actions they're taking? Going beyond kind of how you present the data and how you look at it, also consider data quality. If you're going to be building something and giving it to a business user, you really want to be able to understand, is that reliable? And a lot of that relies on the underlying data. So if you know your data has got gaps, it's got weird values, you need to be elevating that and making sure your end users are aware of it so that they can know how much they can trust what you're analyzing. Be aware of the timeliness of your data as well. So when was it last updated and how frequently does it refresh? If you've got something that updates daily, a number may change regularly. Whereas if you've got something that updates monthly, it may become more static and stable. And you need to be aware of that depending on what your use case is about how frequently you need your data. But always, I would give you one big piece of advice. Even though you may know it, always make sure you're allowing your business users to know it, because just because you know how frequently your data is updated doesn't mean your end users will. So always put something on your dashboard or your analysis to say, when was this data last updated and how frequently is it updated? Because it just gives the user the empowerment of knowing how much they can trust their data. And understand what we call the grain of your data. So that's looking at, is your data aggregated? So are we summing things up? Are we counting things? Or is it transactional in terms of the data is, each row of data is an individual transactional event that you're then analyzing? And again, depending on if data is aggregated or transactional, impacts what you can do with your data and the analysis that you can present. And lastly, probably the most important thing, try and be able to choose the right chart type for your analysis. And thankfully, the amazing people across the Tableau community have done some things to already help with that. So as we will see when we flick to the next slide, the Financial Times, who are they've got an amazing data team. They created a concept called the visual vocabulary. So what the Financial Times said is, for all of the work they do from a data journalism point of view, there are different types of charts they rely on for different types of stories they tell. And they grouped their charts up into deviation, correlation, ranking, distribution, change over time, part to a whole, magnitude, spatial, and flow. And actually, Andy Kriebel, who is now a Tableau Visionary Hall of Famer, so you become a Hall of Famer once you've become a visionary for 5 consecutive years. Andy works for the Information Lab and is in the UK, and he actually took the Financial Times Viz vocabulary and recreated it in Tableau. And every single one of the charts that they use is available within his visual vocabulary workbook. So if you want a helping hand of knowing what chart type should you want to use when you're looking at trend analysis, go on to Tableau Public, search Andy Kriebel, and I promise there is only one Andy Kriebel that will come up because he's that famous, and look for the workbook on his Tableau Public profile that I think last time I looked had been downloaded nearly over 1 million times. And there's no coincidence it's been downloaded so much, because it is probably the most helpful Tableau resource you could possibly wish to have when you're setting out trying to understand what's possible in Tableau. And the nice thing is you can download it and you can actually reverse engineer it so you can see how each of the chart types is constructed, so then you can recreate it yourself. It's a great opportunity to support you in your data professional literacy journey. But let's focus on not us as individuals, let's focus on your data consumers, because I would challenge you, what's the point in producing analysis, or what's the point in producing a chart if no one is going to look at it? So everything you need to do has to demonstrate some value to an organization or the audience you're trying. So I would say we should always be looking at what is the business question that we're trying to answer? And we'll dive into each of these in a bit more detail in a minute. We should always provide business users with the insights that they need to act. So don't produce a chart for the sake of producing a chart because, hey, we can produce this fancy chart. Always think of, does it deliver value to your end user? And is it the easiest chart type that they need to use? And I know it's going to sound really boring, but it's not a coincidence that when you're in a business setting, the vast majority of charts you see are bar charts, because they are the easiest chart type to interpret, and they are the ones that allow people to see and understand their data in the quickest possible fashion. And that is our job as data professionals. So we want to be able to minimize time to insights. And we want to ensure that our dashboards and analysis are designed based on the business problem. So by that, I mean, do people want to be given an answer? So do they want to know what are the sales for the last month? Or do they want to be able to explore the data and drill in more detail? And depending on whether it's exploratory or explanatory, really will influence how you design your dashboards and how you design your content. So engage your users before you do anything and ask them, what are they trying to understand with their data? And it will help steer you in terms of how you design it. And as I said, the most important aspect of a dashboard is it used? Because just if a tree falls over in the forest and no one's in the forest, does anyone hear it? If a dashboard's uploaded to Tableau and no one uses it, what's the point of uploading it? So just always ground yourself in that thought of, is what I'm doing going to deliver value to my end user? So let's dive into a few of those concepts in terms of what we need to remember. So I just wanted to share with you a statement that I think I hold dear to my heart, and I always challenge my analysts to remember when they are working in my team in JLL. So an analyst's job is not just to build content, it is also to ensure business users have the skills and the knowledge to use that content. And this is how the benefit is delivered to the business. So by that, I mean, yes, you will build the Tableau dashboards. Yes, you will build the charts. But increasingly in business, the role of the analyst isn't just to build the chart and send it out. It's also to build the chart and speak to the people that are going to use it. Give people the confidence to know how to interact with the dashboard, how to use the dashboard, how to act on the dashboard. So that's why in the modern industry and enterprise environment, the role of the analyst is not just about chart production, it's about embedding yourself in the business and understanding so much more than just how to use Tableau. And that might seem daunting at first, but actually it can be really inspiring because you get to live and breathe the roles of the people that you're serving. And it can really inspire you to be the best possible analyst you can be. So there you go, if we can just move forward one, please. So in terms of what is your business question, I would encourage you to say, before commencing any piece of analysis or producing any chart type, you've got to make sure that you understand why you're building that chart. So for that, I would simply engage your stakeholders to define a business question. And fundamentally, how can you solve a problem if you don't fully understand the problem you're trying to solve? So in JLL, we try and define a business statement or a business question, and that's saying, what is the problem we're trying to solve? So it might be, how can I understand the trend in the number of work orders we do for our customer? And a business statement doesn't need to be any more complex than that, but if you agree on that up front with your end consumer, you're far more likely to succeed in the content you're building and make sure it resonates with them. So you will always get people in the business that come up to you and say, hey, can you just build me a pie chart? Because that's what Excel can do, and that's what I want, and that's what I've always had. I encourage my analysts to say, thank you for telling me what you've always had, but can you take a step back and tell me what you're trying to do with that pie chart? Because there might be a better way that we can design it. So just because someone's used Excel for years doesn't mean they're a data professional and a data analyst. It just means they've had access to Excel. Because quite often people that use Excel will always go back to, I can do a pivot table or I can do a pivot chart. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the power of Tableau is you can do so much more. And we need to be challenging our users to say, what do you want to solve rather than what do you want us to build? Just on the next slide, you can also build on the concept of questions. So by that, I mean, it's really easy to, when you have a chart and you put the title, it's really easy to make a statement for that chart. So imagine you've got a trend chart, and imagine that's looking at the average temperature, which is very pertinent at the minute in the UK, because I had to live and breathe 40 degrees centigrade the other week, and without air conditioning, really struggled. So you look at average temperatures. If your chart title above it simply says average temperature by day, it's a closed phrase. So someone looks at it, they know what the chart type does, but a closed phrase doesn't foster intrigue or curiosity. Whereas if you phrase that as a question, what is the average temperature by day for the last 2 years? I think you're more likely to get people then engaging with the data and exploring the data rather than simply looking at it and going, that's given me the answer. And we know as humans, we learn more when we ask questions. Because if you remember back to when you were a kid, and if you're a parent, how many questions do you get asked by your child? You get asked loads of them because that's the way they learn. And actually, it's human nature to say, if we can ask questions of our data, we will find more answers. Whereas if we just look at our data and expect it to give us the answers, we'll still learn stuff, but we'll learn far less. So just that subtle nuance of changing the way that you present data can help the way and the behaviors of how people engage it and how they act on it. So I wanted to share with you the importance of context. Now, what you see in front of you is a picture that was released with what looks like a tiger in the middle of a car park. Well, you can imagine all hell would break loose if a tiger was in the middle of an urban area in a car park. But actually, when you add the context to that, you see that actually it's a set of bars that are projecting a shadow onto what is actually a dog. Now, you might think, why is this person coming and joining a Tableau call, showing me a dog and showing me bars? Context is really important from a data perspective. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll give you an example of what that is. So if we quote a KPI, imagine you've got a KPI on a dashboard that says 50% and it's flashing red. So 50% of deliveries have been sent out on time. If I was working in that organization, I can guarantee you a number of leaders all hell would be breaking loose. They would be going all over the place saying, God, how dare we be doing 50% of our deliveries failing? We've got to change. But what if I told you the context of that could be that it's only 1 out of 2 deliveries that were sent made 50%? That's a very different picture, which you really want your users acting on a KPI that in theory is only 2 transactions. So the context of that numerator and denominator is really important to make sure your end users act on the data they see in an appropriate fashion. If we just move on from there, so what I'd challenge you to say is, should business leaders be acting on a metric when the denominator is such a small value? And you always need to have that built into the back of your mind that when you're analyzing something, how do you demonstrate that context of the denominator? Well, here's a way. So I just wanted to show some Tableau in the presentation. So I just took something that we've done in JLL that we've sanitized. This is one of our KPI dashboards that we send out to our clients. It won an award about 2 years ago for being an exemplar in terms of telling a data story. And you'll notice that we don't just tell the percentage of each metric. We don't just tell the trend line of how it's changed over time. We also give something that's highlighted in blue there, the additional context. So we quote the numerator and the denominator in terms of how many non-compliant metrics are there. So you can see that top metric is 100%, and it's only out of 3 units in terms of what you're analysing. So there are no non-compliant units, but there's only 3 units that we're analysing. And that's really important in terms of being able to provide that context so your end users understand it. So moving on from that, think about data behaviours and beware of solely relying on traffic lights. So when I say that, when you are driving, do you rely solely on a green light to be able to progress? Well, I say no here. I hope the answer is no. So I hope you're looking around you and saying, are there any other traffic obstructions? Am I safe to go? And you act on the green light only once you understand your surroundings. And we really want to encourage our users to have that same behavior. We want people to ask of their data, what else do I know? So it's really easy to present a dashboard that's just got red, green, and amber. But if we move on to the next page, what you'll see is you've got a metric. It's 95%. Well, that's great. We're green. Performance is good. I move on. As a data leader, I would be encouraging you from a data literacy perspective to take a step back, because what I want to ask is, what about the other 5%? What is the risk of the other 5% that I need to know as a data leader to be able to make sure that my organization is maximum safeguard when it comes to assurance and performance? And even though the traffic light says green, even though the metric says compliance, always try and design your dashboards in a way that say, what else? So if we move on to the next slide, as I say, what about the 5% non-compliance? What risks remain? Well, again, giving you an insight into Tableau and what you can do. What I now will share with you is what we do in JLL. So that very same KPI dashboard, you've got the ability there. So we shamelessly copied maybe a certain mobile phone design. You'll see on the left-hand side, you've got an alarm bell and it says 2 out of 95. So what that's saying is, even though you're viewing an aggregated position across all of the metrics, are there any constituent countries within it that you need to know are non-compliant? And that alarm bell allows someone to say, what do I need to know? There are 2 countries with 2 metrics that are non-compliant across the 93 different combinations. And then to the right-hand side, something as simple as that little orange dot simply allows us to see, are there any non-compliant countries? And just those little visual prompts, they don't need to be complex, but they just help your users focus on action and the right action rather than taking false assurance. So I would leave you with a takeaway message. People collect data, people analyze data, people act on data. So I think data literacy should be centered around people, because ultimately data is about people and it's people that do something with data. So yes, throughout the week, enjoy learning Tableau, enjoy learning about data, but don't forget, ultimately, it is people that will act on it. So always have that at the center of what you're doing and how you do it. And I'd like to thank you for your time this morning. And I've got a couple of minutes I can stay on if people have got any questions.
Thank you so much, Simon. It was such an insightful presentation, and I love specifically around the part where you talked about like being a little kid and just being curious and asking questions, because I really think that is the best time we learn, is like being curious. And so if anyone has any questions for Simon before he jumps off, please feel free to post it in the chat. I have all of his social channels listed on this slide deck. So when I send it out later today, please feel free to connect with him and reach out. A question that came through is, Simon, can you repeat the part of context?
Yeah, so just maybe, Bergen, if you can quickly flick back up to the slide and I'll just quickly explain. I think it was about 7 or 8 slides up. So you can quote quite often when you're looking at data, you can quote a percentage. And that percentage is perfectly valid, but the important part is understanding what is the context of that percentage. So if you're saying something is 50% compliance, how many things are you looking at to calculate that 50%? Because if your number's really small, it may only take one non-compliant transaction to get a number of 50%. And the risk is, if your business users are simply acting on the percentage, they may run off and do a million different things to try and improve performance, when in reality they don't need to, because it's only 1 out of 2 transactions that are non-compliance. So that's what I was trying to encourage people to say. When you present especially aggregated analysis, always try and provide the context of how many things have you analysed to create that number, so that people act on it appropriately.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to post it in the chat. All right. Well, I haven't seen any other questions come in. So Simon, thank you again so much for joining us today and kind of kicking off this amazing week. So appreciate you taking the time.
No problem at all. Have a great time, everyone. Enjoy learning Tableau. Hopefully you'll be a bit of a geek like I am and love every minute of it. And if you do want to reach out and connect on LinkedIn, Twitter, please feel free to do so. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions remotely. So have fun and have a good week.
Thanks, Simon. I see a question coming in. Just when will we get this recording? I tend to send out the recordings within 12 hours of the webinar. So I'll make sure to send this to everyone's email that registered for this. You'll get the slide deck, the on-demand video, and all of the social channels to connect with Simon. So now I would love to welcome Esther to end it on an amazing student story. I had the incredible opportunity of meeting Esther when I was running a kind of like student video campaign. We were reaching out to interview students of just sharing their story on how they got involved with Tableau and developing their data skills. And so Esther, thank you so much for just coming back again and being a part of this. I'm so excited to see you. I will stop sharing my screen so you can share yours if you have some slides.
Yes, I do. Hi, everyone. I'll go ahead and share my screen right now. Okay, 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so hi, everyone. My name is Esther Okaro. And I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, but now I live here in the United States. I moved for my education. So I've been here, let's say, for about 9 years. I started off my journey in Utah, where I started my bachelor's degree. And then I decided to move to Minnesota, where I got a full ride scholarship to study biology and psychology. And once I was done with that, I decided, you know what, I want a change of environment. So I decided to move to Houston for my master's program. And I've been in Houston right after that. So some of my hobbies, I love singing, cooking, reading a lot of books. I read a lot of novels. I also love reading journal articles, just to kind of know what research is out there. And I also love dancing also. So for my education, I had my bachelor's degree at Minnesota State University, and that was in psychology and biology, like I said earlier. I decided, you know what, I want to do something different. I want to have a different feel of what's out there. So I challenged myself and I decided to do my master's in something totally different. And that was engineering technology. It was a big shift because a lot of people were like, woo, what are you doing? Engineering and all of that. And I was like, yeah, let's just see how this goes. And I decided to go ahead and register for that master's program. And I started my engineering degree. My main focus was in computational health informatics and data analysis. It was kind of a big shift because prior to engineering, I had done a couple of research work, but I hadn't fully had the access to working with a lot of data sets or just being in a position where I had to figure out another way to understand what softwares are out there for coding, for, doing some of the data visualizations and all of that. So I remember taking my first class in my master's program, and that was a class that was an introduction to visualization. And in that class, it was a totally different turn for me because I was like, okay, visualization, what do you mean? Like showing pictures or like telling people stories? Like, what are we talking about? I was totally like not into it. And then I was introduced to Tableau. And that was my first contact with ever finding out about Tableau, what Tableau was about, how you could make use of Tableau. And it was a big shift for me because I hadn't had any previous experience to that, or not really interacted with a lot of people that talked about Tableau or used Tableau for most of their like visualizations or just analyzing some of their data and having a perfect representation of what that data was about. And so when I got introduced to Tableau, it was pretty exciting. It was a different shift for me. The first thing that came to mind was, okay, so what do I have to do within this software? Like what are the steps I have to take to understand, to visualize, impute my data, compile my data? What can I do within this particular area? What is it that it's going to offer to me? What is it that I'm learning, or what are the takeaways I could take from this? And the first thing that kind of hit me was just being able to know how to have a connection of that data source. Where is it you're getting your data from? Could it be from an Excel file? Could it be from like a Teradata source point? Like you also have like the SQL component within it and all of that. So it was just like a lot of things that I really liked. Like I was like, so you truly have just this one space that could do like everything for me. And so I was super excited because for me, it was kind of like difficult trying to figure out like, okay, so I have to like write down my SQL in like a different platform and then come back and do this and work on an Excel, create pivots in Excel and all of that. And the one thing that helped me was because I realized that over time, I was working with a lot of data sets in my program for projects, in my research lab. So it just helped simplify my work. And then I moved on, graduated. Right before graduation, like my last semester of graduation, I had a full-time position where I was working as a technical project manager. And in that role, I was also required to do a couple of visualizations just to show the lead project manager, like, this is what is going on with our orders, this is where we are, this is where we're having backlogs, and just kind of showing that visualization to the lead project manager. It was a big thing for them, and they really appreciated that because that was a different perspective as to what they were used to, because they would typically just go into Excel files, pull out the orders, try and look for ways to simplify it, but just creating that visualization for them to show them, okay, these are the states where we have these backlogs. These are the states where things are not moving. It was really helpful. And I could see how that kind of moved. I was able to speed up the process as to how things were flowing within the organization. Right after I graduated, I then got my job with Dell Technologies, and then I got a full area where I had to work as a data analyst and also a part-time program manager. So that was also something I was really excited about, because I was like, yeah, I come back to this point where I have to work with data. And I think when I started having to work with a couple of things for my new position as a data analyst, it was a big shift, because then I started learning about all of this data that I had to work with. It was like a lot of data, but just the confidence knowing that, okay, I had, Tableau to rely on, as long as I understood the data, as long as I was able to interpret the data as well as I understood it, and getting the help from everyone to be able to show that visualization as to what they were expecting to get out from that data set. And I think the 5 points that I know that key into the importance of Tableau for me is, one, you come out with those great visualizations. It's not only about like, oh yeah, this is my dashboard, but with those visualizations, you're able to explain properly what the whole data sets are, what the whole verbatim was, and like just come in to say, okay, this is the simplified information you need. And just providing that dashboard, it could help anyone within your team, within the organization, have a feel and also have an understanding as to what the data is about, as to how they're solving the problem that they're facing right now, as to what are the next steps that you would prefer from this information for that team or for whatever project you're on. And I think the other thing you could also get out of it is the detailed insights. With Tableau, one thing I like is, once you figure out what your data is about and how you want to show that data, you tend to visualize the important parts of the data. You tend to create areas where you're able to compare, you're able to show that this is what is happening. What if this didn't happen? What if this happens in the next couple of years? And what if we get more data sets that we have to work with? This is what I could show. And another thing is the user-friendly approach. I've worked with some other software programs that are pretty difficult to like interact with or even understand. Like sometimes you end up like figuring that those data sets you start computing into those other software programs, it becomes an issue over time, because then it's either you're losing some of your data, it's not uploading all the data, you cannot connect to the right data source, you keep on going around in circles. But the user-friendly approach is very important, because then, like I said, I figured out that you had the custom SQL within Tableau, you had connections to other various data sources within Tableau. You could do various things within Tableau, because then you had that interaction to build in things that you wanted to see your data sources become. And another thing is working with different data sources. Like I said, you're able to use Teradata, you're able to use Excel, you just have those components available for you, as to being restricted to just working with an Excel file. I know coming into my position as a data analyst, a lot of people that I was working with, they were just used to working in Excel. So when I came in and I was like, okay, can I take a look at your Excel documents? Can I see what you have? And they would show me the whole data, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot. And they're like, yeah, I had to create this sheet, this sheet, this sheet, this sheet. And I'm like, that's a lot. Like, would you like to have it in like a different form? Like, I can help you. And then I would walk them through the easy ways they could just import those files as their data sources into Tableau to be able to interact better with that data. And it was a changing moment for a lot of them, because some of these people had gone like 20 years, 15 years without being able to have that means to have an easy way to visualize their data. And another thing is the data set adding is super easy. Tableau can add on those data sets for you. You automatically figure out how to blend your common fields. You also figure out how to say, okay, these are the different tables. You could create those joins, unions, all of those things within Tableau. And that's one exciting feature that I feel like you don't get from a lot of other sources that you have out there. It's been amazing to be able to work with Tableau over time and see the growth that I've been able to make using Tableau within my workspaces. Prior to that, it was just projects within my master's program, but seeing how that plays out within my career part and being in a full-time position and having to work with different data sets as compared to what I was used to in my master's program, it's a big deal right now, because thinking back 2 years now, and I'm just like, if I never had a hold of Tableau, like I probably would have just been like working on Excel files and like stressing myself all day trying to figure this out, trying to create a pivot table, trying to do this like it integrated an easy work style for me. I mean, when I say easy work style, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like it's easy like to do everything. You have to learn how to figure out everything within Tableau, but I would say like now that you're in the process of trying to learn, understand, take all of this in, enjoy the experience, learn all you can learn. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to do those calculations and say, oh, my calculated fields are not working. What's going on? Don't be afraid to do all of that. Don't be afraid to make those mistakes right now, because on the long run, you're going to see that when you think back, making these mistakes will get you to a point where you figure out that, oh yeah, I'm now good at this. Like I could show data in the best possible way. So I would say, like I said in my video that I created about a year ago, it was my words that I hold dearly is, don't be afraid to try it all. Don't be afraid to try it all with Tableau. With everything you're gonna do in this camp, everything you're gonna learn, take it in. Everything, questions, ask the questions. I know my professor who introduced me to Tableau, till today, we still talk about like how I started off the class, how I wasn't one of the best students, how I always struggled, how I always, called out and asked questions. But now I'm in a position where I just feel really good and confident in whatever I'm doing. And in any workspace that I'm in, I could tell you, just give me the data, I'll take a look and I could help you visualize that better. So I would say good luck to you guys. Enjoy every moment and have so much fun while you're doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Esther. Just always love hearing your story, always love hearing your positivity. If you could give me that inspiration every morning to start my day, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat for Esther, and we may finish like a few minutes early today, but I'll leave it open for questions. Esther, one of the questions that came in, what resources did you learn Tableau besides attending lectures?
Okay, I'm not sure I got that question. So are you asking like what other resource? Oh, okay.
So like outside of just attending lectures and kind of classroom knowledge, what other resources did you use to learn Tableau?
Oh, okay. So aside like doing some of the lectures or classes, some things I did was, going on the Tableau space on their website and kind of figuring out what programs you could do, what certifications you could do. And I kind of took some of those lecture classes, kind of like learned through and kind of figured out things for myself. Also, good resources you also have is you could also go on YouTube, figure out, some of those introductory videos that could kind of like teach you a couple of things. And there are also like the Tableau community. So you could like reach out, contact people, be in communication with other people who use Tableau. And I think that kind of helped me a lot, because like when I worked on projects, sometimes I would have like a hinge site where I would like get stuck and not figure out the next step to take. And then I would just like post like my information and like reach out to other people within the community, and they can take a look and be like, oh yeah, I think you're, doing this wrong. I think you're doing this right. Like take a look at a previous worksheet or something workbook that I had worked on before, and then they kind of like give you more insight as to what else you could do. That kind of helped, yeah, other than just being in lectures. Like you could get as much as you can get from lectures, but sometimes you have to practice and do more and challenge yourself to get more resources out there.
I totally agree on that answer. Another question that came in is, so for Tableau, do you need to learn SQL or Python?
Well, I would say you do not need to. It's not a requirement, but sometimes a lot of people who have like prior knowledge working with SQL, Python, and all of that, they like to integrate that into working with their data sets. Also, I kind of figured out sometimes, depending on the kind of data sources that you're working with, I worked with like the Teradata space, and sometimes I could do like some of my Python coding things within that space. And then when I integrated and connected my data to Tableau, I could also run some of those Python things within like Tableau and do some of my SQL, just because sometimes I wanted to have like that cross-referencing for my data sets and see what I was computing and just make sure my numbers were making sense.
Another question that came in, was it easy to transition from a non-tech background to a data analyst?
Was it easy? No, I'll be honest. It wasn't easy. And I'm just gonna say, be honest, because a lot of times people make tech seem like, it's so easy. It's so, yeah, you can figure it out in one day. But I'm gonna be honest, it's not that easy. A lot of it comes in with grit and a lot of hard work. You have to put in the work. Like no one is going to come to you and be like, oh, here, this is a cheat sheet of like all the information and all the things you have to figure out in tech. No, you're going to have to do all the background work. You're going to do all of the researching, getting all your resources, connecting with the right people, finding the right platforms. And that's why I'm super excited that I was able to figure out Tableau at an early stage before I fully transitioned into my career part. And I think that kind of helped me, because if I didn't make the right connections, I probably wouldn't even know what I'm doing right now. So I would say it's not that easy, but if you're ready to put in the work, trust me, like you would see how things would plan out like super easy for you in a couple of years.
Yeah, I love that. I love just kind of your non-traditional data analyst educational journey, because it really just shows that data is for everyone. It doesn't matter kind of what major you're in. I think going back to Simon on data literacy, it's all about people in that aspect. I think we have one more question. So how do you get started with building dashboards? Should I copy and reverse engineer other people's work?
Well, I would say I'm not a big fan of advising people to copy people's work. I think one thing you need to understand is Tableau gives you the space to be your own innovator. It gives you the space to be in charge of your own creations. So I could say you could take a look at other people's work, like what they've done, how their dashboards look, and you really like what they're doing in their dashboards. You could kind of take away some of those ideas, but I would say creating your own dashboard in your own unique way helps you interpret the data better. Because if you're trying to talk to someone about, oh, this is what I have in my dashboard, this is how my dashboard interacts with all of this information over the different sheets I've worked in, and this is now the dashboard, you're able to explain it better. You're able to create that interaction better. So that way, whoever takes on that dashboard and tries to use it in the next meeting to kind of explain, like, so take, for example, like my work, I create the dashboards, but I don't have to sit in all of the meetings. My work is done. I'm done with the dashboard. I explained it to you. It's kind of interactive for you. The next person takes it on and goes into the next meeting to kind of explain what they did, what the data analysts did with the data. So like I would say, just try to make sure that you make those dashboards as interactive, simplified, and understandable as possible. Trying to copy other people's work, like, it's okay, you could take those ideas, but if you're trying to copy, you might have an issue trying to explain when there's like a lot of things going on within the dashboard.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, I think those are the end of the questions. I think another one is just any courses that you would recommend under Tableau or Salesforce.
I would say I'm not sure I can remember the courses I took exactly, but I know for my certification, there were like a lot of like classes you could take before you actually take the actual certification. So like if you're trying to take the Tableau certified desktop admin certification and all of that, like there are classes you would have to go through. They also have like the review documents of like, you know, lecture outlines that would help you to take the certification. So you could actually utilize all of those resources you have. I'm not really sure like what courses I could like recommend, but definitely I feel like while going through this camp and all of that, you would also get information about all of the courses that would be available for you. But I would say when I had to take the certification, that was something that kind of helped me, just having those resources before you took the certification.
That's awesome. And as when I send around this recording as a follow-up, I'll include some kind of e-learning and some self-paced learning and courses that I think would be helpful to everyone to just kind of take on their own time throughout the week. Oh, another question popped up. Do you show any projects that you built yourself in your resume as you didn't have any prior experience? And if yes, what projects do you highlight?
I think I try to sometimes not highlight that a lot of times in my resume, because then I feel like it brings in a lot of questions as to, oh, you did this project now, like what happened prior to that? Like you get a lot of questions. But I think one thing that I also highlight sometimes when I have those conversations, I think it also depends on like what positions you're applying for. If I'm applying to more of like the data analyst, more data focused positions, I tend to highlight those projects because I know I'm trying to go for those data positions. But if I'm trying to go for like, let's say like more of like the project management roles or the program management roles, I don't tend to talk about that a lot because I'm like, they really might not want to get that information. But along like the interview, I talk about like, you know, the projects I've worked on, how I worked on the projects, what were the outputs from those projects working within Tableau. So I kind of explain that a little. But when applying for the data positions, I definitely highlight those projects. And I think one project that I always talk about is one of the projects I did within the University of Houston. And that was towards like my final year project where I had to provide a proper integration with like hospital data, kind of showing records of like health records over time for a hospital. I cannot give that much information, but that was one project I worked on. And it was kind of tracking the COVID cases that were occurring by age, by groups, and also another thing we looked at was by the areas within Houston. And that was one project that was really a lot for me. And I think that was one project that kind of put me into the Tableau space. And that project was really a big one because it happened right at the peak of COVID. And, you know, everyone just wanted to know what's happening with these COVID cases, where at the hospitals that, you know, most of these COVID cases are taking places in more, and like, what are the numbers? So that was what my project was on. I worked on that project with like 3 other graduate students. So it was a big project for us because it took about a whole academic year to, you know, finish that project. So I would say that's one I always highlight because when people go back to look into that project, they kind of see like the use and the effectiveness from that project.
Yeah, that project sounds incredible, especially just during the time of all of that happening.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Esther, for just kind of kicking us off this week. I am so grateful to have you just in the data family and being part of the Tableau community. I think one of my favorite parts of this whole summer camp series is just being able to learn from each other. So I think throughout this whole week, you will hear other student stories to just kind of get inspired, meet like-minded individuals, and just please feel free to connect with Esther. I will share all of her social channels to get connected with her. And then just to close out, for tomorrow, we are starting at the same time at the top of the half hour. So we'll have another Tableau visionary named Carl Alchin coming to do a demo of Tableau Prep and also sharing his career story because he has a very interesting journey as well. So please feel free to get a free Tableau desktop license through our Tableau for Students program. All students at accredited universities get a free desktop license, a free prep license, free Tableau e-learning, which is like self-paced e-learning resources that I will send along with the recording, and also discounted certification that Esther was talking about earlier. So thank you all so much for being part of day one. I'm so excited to kind of just go through the week with all of you. I'll stay on for a few extra minutes just in case anyone has any questions. But if not, have a great rest of your day and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye, Esther. Thank you so much. A quick question of just, will this recording be made available? Absolutely. I'll be sending it out probably within a few hours to all of you with your email that you signed up to register with. Thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow. Xavier, I see you asking a question about being a student ambassador. So thank you so much for applying. I'm super excited. At the moment, no action items are needed as long as you applied. The application window actually closes this week, and then we'll start reviewing applications. So I'll reach out with more information once the application closes. I see a question, how I started my Tableau journey. So thank you for asking. I actually started as a Tableau intern my junior year of college. So at the time, I was not interested in data analytics. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I really enjoyed marketing. And so ended up kind of having this Kismet universe experience of getting an internship with Tableau with no prior data analyst background. And it truly just kind of changed my life. And so I'm very more like right brain creative side. And so I think being part of Tableau has really kind of stretched and tested my left brain of really being analytical. And so I was kind of able to marry the two things together in my role. So I've been at Tableau for about 6 years now, started on the partner marketing team, and then moved over to academic programs almost 3 years ago. So I'm super passionate about helping people because I think I didn't get to where I am without the people around me and mentors and just the community. And so I'm really passionate about just kind of giving back and being there for support, especially as a student, because it's such a pivotal time for all of you. So I am happy to help. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you all so much, and we will see you tomorrow. Be on the lookout for an email from me with all the on-demand recordings and helpful links. Bye all.